That's the point, Charles. As I understand the law in most states, the unions, the government unions, can't go on strike, although they have here, as you know. You remember, the trains were shut down. But the unions get their friends to be on the other side of the bargaining table. We had it in New Jersey. The governor was the boyfriend of the head of the chief labor union with whom he was negotiating. He's no longer the governor. How bad is that?
Well, let's put it this way. I did a study. The top 10 states with the most union workers, with New York at the top, 27%. Out of those top 10, 9 voted for President Obama. Of the bottom 10 states, non-union, 9 were red states. So, but you think about this, huge electoral college votes. If you can get those 10 states to go with you, add in people on welfare, a few others, you've won the White House again, even though you may be destroying the entire country.
Charles Payne, Mark Mix, thank you very much for joining us on this troublesome topic. Next, Americans cherish their right to free speech, perhaps above all other rights. How is your right to free speech being chipped away? Right back. The right to speak freely does not come from the government, which the big government folks claim. It is an indelible aspect of our humanity. That means that the government may not require a license or demand permission or intimidate any speakers. The bottom line is it may not punish speech, no matter what the speech asks for. Stated differently, no one in the government, any government, may impose a burden on the exercise of speech, whether it's Tea Party folks calling the president a socialist or protesters comparing President Bush to Hitler. Joining me now is Naomi Wolf. She's a New York Times bestselling author. Her latest book is The End of America. Naomi, welcome to the program. So one of the interesting aspects of speech that most folks don't know about is not only may the government not interfere with speech, but the government may not force or compel speech. So, question. The government signs a health care law, enacts a health care law. The president signs it into law. Corporations say we're going to lose money as a result of this law, as the law requires them to say when they think they're going to lose money. Suddenly they're dragged before a congressional committee to explain how you're going to lose money and how can you say you're going to lose money and why are you saying it now? Is that constitutional?
I have no idea if it's constitutional or not. You're the expert on that. I think that the government has every right to speak, just as you pointed out. The First Amendment protects all of our speech, just as citizens also have every right to speak. It's news to me, Judge, that it's unconstitutional to compel speech. There are plenty of situations in which people compel others to speak, for instance, to compel testimony. So you need to educate me about that.
All right. We'll talk about that one, because if the information that is sought is private and not available to the government, or flip side, if the information is already in the government's hands, like in the hands of the SEC, what right does the government have to drag these CEOs in and make them answer questions under oath? Another problem for you.
Well, can I just jump in, Judge? Can I just jump in?
Please.
It seems to me, I mean, one thing I really appreciate about a lot of the transpartisan movements going on right now is that the Constitution transcends everything. And so it seems to me that we can agree that government secrecy has been excessive, and governments and also corporate secrecy has been excessive. So as a citizen, I would rather have too much transparency, too much compulsion to disclose, too many details in the hands of the people from both governments and corporations than too few. I'd rather err on that, in that direction.
When members of Congress call Tea Partiers racist, is there some sort of implicit threat or effort to infringe the free speech of the Tea Partiers? I mean, racist is a brush that when someone is painted with it, it's very difficult to get that off.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's a very strong term, and I would want to see on what basis representatives are calling citizens racist. It's strong language. However, I also am a First Amendment absolutist, and I think that if something strikes someone, whether they're a representative or a postal worker or a homemaker, as racist, they should be entitled to say so. Just as someone being called racist, the best cure for that, as Jefferson always held, is bad speech or wrong speech or accurate speech should be addressed with more speech. So if people are offended by that, if the Tea Party is offended by that, they should speak up, and that's exactly what the First Amendment was supposed to do: strengthen our republic by having, government and citizens in firm and robust communication. communication with each other. It's good. It's good for us to think about what racism means.
Got it. More with Naomi Wolf. We'll be right back. With Naomi Wolf. She's a New York Times best-selling author. Her latest book is The End of America. Naomi, recently, a federal judge in San Francisco hearing the case about warrantless wiretapping ruled once and for all, I hope, that the president is subject to the same laws as the rest of us. And he told President Bush, who's now out of the case, and President Obama that he's in the case, you want to listen to somebody's telephone calls, go to a judge and get permission. Is this the end of it, or are they still going to listen to our conversations without getting a search warrant?
You know, I wish the CIA had a direct phone line in to tell me what they were doing. I have no idea if this is the end. We have such a long history going back to COINTELPRO in the 50s of illegal wiretapping, illegal infiltration by the intelligence services and by the FBI. But I certainly, as a citizen, I was so delighted and relieved to have heard that decision. I think citizens are becoming aware that surveillance is part of a police state, and that every dictator, whether on the right or the left, whether Chinese communists or Mussolini, started to build a police state through surveilling ordinary citizens, and they always justified in the name of national security.
Does the government really think that there's some exception in the Constitution for national security? I mean, they took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not just the parts of it they like, but all parts of it.
It's shocking. I mean, anyone who reads the Fourth Amendment understands that the founders put that in because ordinary citizens were having their homes broken into by mercenary soldiers, having their private papers gone through, having things confiscated without the Crown taking the trouble to go to a magistrate and persuade that person that this was warranted. And it affects us deeply. I mean, it's been this sort of creeping sense that we have that our communications are not confidential. Activists are having their mail tampered with. They assume that their phone calls are being listened to, that their emails are being read. And this is the kind of thing that once it reaches past a certain point, you really can't go back. Because all of us have secrets, Judge, not necessarily illegal things, but personal things. You know, things we tell our therapist, things we tell our accountant, an addiction. And so the government has the power to use that against us when it's a surveillance society. Hopefully the government will now stick to the Constitution since a federal judge has told them that they need to do so. We'll be back with a couple of final thoughts in just a minute. The loss of freedom comes in many forms. Sometimes it is direct and profound, like when the government stops you from doing what you formerly had the freedom to do, like choose your own doctor and your own health care provider, or choose not to have health care insurance. Sometimes it is more subtle, like when the government prints money to pay its bills, and as a result, all the money you already have loses some of its value. Sometimes freedom is lost when the federal government compels the states to bend to its will, and all the laws in all the states become uniform. President Reagan was fond of saying that because the states are independent of each other, and in some areas independent of the federal government, you can vote with your feet. If you want less government, move to New Hampshire. If you want more government, move to Massachusetts. But if the federal government makes the laws oppressive in every state, there's nowhere to move. Let me ask you, America, what is freedom? Freedom is the ability of every person to exercise his own free will and conscience, rather than to be subject to the will of a bureaucrat in the government. Our free will is a gift from God, and the government may not take it away. And now a word about the season. In the Christian world, today is Holy Thursday, known in literature and art as the Last Supper. The Last Supper was a Jewish Passover Seder, and it was the final meal that Jesus ate before he died. At that supper, he performed two miracles. He transformed bread and wine into his own body and blood, and he empowered his disciples and their successors to do the same. On Good Friday, which is commemorated tomorrow, he was executed for claiming to be God. He died that we might be set free from sin and oppression. 3 days later, on Easter, he rose from the dead. Easter has a meaning that is both simple and incomprehensible. Easter means that there is hope for the dead. And if there is hope for the dead, there is hope for the living. And we, the living, can only achieve our hopes if we have freedom.
from New York, defending freedom. Happy Easter, America.